Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of whatever this is. It's been a while, man. We just covered One Piece last time, and we're finally getting back in the groove of things. How are you, man?
I'm good, and it's nice to see you not completely half awake.
Yeah, no shades today. I'm awake as ever. Shout out to the two fans who were waiting for this episode. Uh, Hopefully, you do catch it, and hopefully, you do enjoy. So, this one is a bit of a deeper one, I think, because about a couple months ago, I was in the car and on the radio, uh, there was this talk show host, and he was talking. He or she were talking about social media and how it impacts their kids. And they had another guest on who's like a expert mom or whatever. Don't know that the hell that means. Uh, but yeah, she was on the show and she was also explaining at like what age you think you should give your kid a smartphone, and at what point in their life is it okay to open the floodgates into the descent of hell. Um, yeah, so I just started thinking about this topic heavily after that talk show, and I've also been thinking about this on like a personal level as well. Like if I when I have kids at one point in my life, uh, at what age would I give them their first smartphone? I've thought about this a lot because I got my first smartphone when I was I think 13 or 12, and before that, the older generation, like my dad got his smartphone in college, my mom got it after graduating college. Like also at that time, smartphones weren't like a thing; they were like Nokia phones, but they got their first phone much later in the game than we are getting. And now I can see even my younger cousins who are getting phones at like 7 or 8, which is like halving my age. So like, will there ever be a point where I have to give my kid a phone when he's like 3 or 4, or like, do I be like a cruel parent and just give them the phone when they're graduating high school because they don't deserve anything and they have to study and become a doctor? It's a very nuanced discussion, and like I wanted to talk to you about this and the viewers as well. So yeah,
I
that's
mean,
my
I,
intro
I,
speech. I think.
I definitely think let's think about what age do you think is appropriate for giving your child a smartphone.
A smartphone or a burner phone?
I mean, okay, think about this. So when we originally got phones at that time, right? Phones were a fairly still new thing. Not many people like cell phones were more expensive. Now smartphones are almost the standard, and it's just not as expensive as it used to be. Like you could get probably like my phone that I have like 4 or 5 years ago, probably for like $200 or something. Like it's not, and it's a smartphone, obviously. Before it was new, now it's old. Everything's even when we have kids, assume maybe 4 years, maybe 5 years max, and maybe another 10 years they'll say because when they'll actually be of age to have a smartphone. Maybe you'll say like if you're saying 7 or 8, like your younger cousins do, then you would have to think about is it smartphone or burner phone, but no one really uses burner phones anymore unless you're like a drug dealer or something.
Hey man, that's where the money's at, bro. Not gonna lie.
So you can't really
Also, disclaimer: we're not advocating selling any drugs or alcohol. We keep it clean. Please
we're
don't do that.
Muslims. We don't do yeah, we don't do those things. That's the most
Yeah,
religion will try to keep it to.
it was a joke.
Um,
Don't cancel us. Thank you.
but anyway, yeah. So like that's my thought with smartphone. Like I think personally, I think your 7 to 8 that your cousins are getting might not be that bad. Because my thought was just like, smartphones can do so many things, right? But then all these younger kids have like iPads and they know how to use iPads, and iPads basically do the same thing besides calling.
Right, I forgot about that. Holy, iPads have like cellular as well. So if you put a SIM card in it, you can basically call. It's a
Yeah,
big
and you
fat
can do
phone.
that too. Yeah,
Like
you can
FaceTime
do
and
that
everything
too.
is there. VoIP, like Snapchat, Instagram, people call on their on those platforms too. So at what point is it a smartphone or is it more of social media? My my Masi or my aunt in India, they someone in India has come out with like a new technology, like a smartwatch, which has GPS tracking and cellular. So if your kid's like 5 and he's in school, and if you want to track him or keep him know where he is and make sure he's safe, then you can give them the smartwatch. They can at least call people, and you know where they are. So that might be the first. Like when I think about giving my kid the first dose of dopamine, I feel like that might be it. Like giving him that smartwatch and letting him call his other friend or
Well, you're gonna
something.
let
I
him
don't know.
play video games first, right? So he's gonna get that dopamine too, but that's a different topic for another day.
By dopamine, I mean social media dopamine, and I think this is like a nice segue because there have been studies which show that like when you post on Instagram or any media which has like a metric of success like likes, views, the more you get, the more dopamine hit you get. Like I don't know how to say it in like a scientific term way, but like that's how it is. Like so that's what I mean by giving my kid the first dose of dopamine. Like once you get a smartphone, you start downloading everything and you start socializing everywhere.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I would think just you have to put those child protections, but even then, that's kind of hard to do, because as technology advances, you putting those child like safeguards might not actually do anything.
I mean, iPhone has like a family feature thing where you can uh, set screen time, app usage, like Instagram 1 hour, Facebook 30 minutes, or like Snapchat 30 minutes a day, and after that they lock you out. And if you don't have the password, then you have to ask your parents. And those features are there, but again, like a lot of studies have showed that like kids' self-esteem takes a big hit when they go on social media, and this is like another. This goes into like parenting and being a good parent versus letting them loose on social media. Like, what do you think? Like, I know you read like a 15-page article, nerd. Like, what did you
Almost.
find?
Oh, I read like 8 pages.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing if you don't mind, we can start out with just children's education. So for me, like I found articles relating to, and I feel like this might be it's completely intentional. Like they're not talking about if social media is good or bad, more so how what strategies they can use, like teachers using it for class, blog posts, and more of things of that nature versus actually saying it's good or bad. And I think just the reality is that everyone uses it to such an extent that you can't really say it's good or bad because people are doing it anyway.
My opinion is social media is net good. Like, if you have the right mindset and the right framework, you can make social media work for your benefit. Especially kids. Like, people say that kids learn a lot when they're younger. Like, they're like a sponge. So, if you can give them the right tools, make them learn different languages. Like YouTube is like basically a university at this point. Like you just type how to X and you can learn it on YouTube for free, basically.
But now my question is, and I just want to just clarify: you consider YouTube a part of the social media?
Yeah,
Because you can, is it because you can comment, or is it because there's videos?
there's videos, there's content. YouTube also has come out with posts, the reels, like TikTokification of
Yeah,
YouTube.
yeah, you could do that too now.
It's a social media.
If you're talking about YouTube, then obviously I would say yeah, there's a net benefit. But again, like just to not get too much out of the scope. So yeah, you're right. There is benefits. They mention in this article. They just mentioned some things, and I don't. I want to stick to the topic of education, but just to brief on what you're mentioning is that they do say that for socializing, it makes things better, especially if you're a marginalized community or someone who's having trouble socializing. If you're more introverted or even not, then it helps you communicate and connect with a lot of people. So that they do consider that as a benefit.
Yeah, for sure. Like that's what I mean by being like a tyrant, like a tyrannical parent, not giving them the phone until high school graduation, because that means you're stripping them of every socializing possible in their school, in their communities, wherever they are.
Yeah, I mean, my parents never really did that. Like, they gave me the phone and they just said, "Okay, it's your phone." Like, they never really micromanaged me in that
How
sense.
how old were you when you got your phone?
15, 16.
I mean, you're also like a weird one because you never you don't have any social media.
Yeah,
You only have
you
WhatsApp.
know, Yeah, you know that's I'm hardly the example for the average child, so you can't really compare.
But because you're an outlier, everyone wants to know like why you're so different.
That's also a different topic for another day.
No, but like, how do you think that not having social media has helped you or not helped you?
I mean, I think for me, it's just personally. I mean, maybe some people will disagree, but besides YouTube, because I obviously watch YouTube. If you're counting YouTube, then yes, YouTube I'm on. If you want to go about WhatsApp and whatnot, then maybe you can consider that too. That yes, I'm obviously on WhatsApp, but that's more limited compared to Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. For me, I really don't. The thing is, for me, when I connect with people, it's usually with people that I obviously meet. LinkedIn, if you want to count it, but that's more professional, so we're not gonna add that in. Um, so for me, I think it just like less distractions. Honestly, like I don't get distracted that easily. I think, um, like if I when I want to do something, I'll do it. When I don't, I don't. But I think the social media, and I think a lot of things like self esteem that I'm sure like you looked into, and I saw a lot of like self esteem makes a big difference. A lot of my I'm not basing anything off of social media, but at the same time, people will argue that we're adults, so we know what to believe and not to believe compared to children. And we weren't exposed to these things as children to start making assumptions about it.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've read, the emphasis was, and basically, I've read like uh, opinion blogs on university websites, so they're somewhat accredited, but like not really. But they're from university, so they might be a little smart. Whoever's writing it, uh,
I hope.
I hope so. But like they were just saying that the emphasis has to be on the parents giving the children the right self-esteem before they even give them the phone or even while they have their mobile to make sure that the kids are in the right space mentally and socially as well. So like I think that it's just really tough to like decide what's a bigger factor in self-esteem, like social media or like the parents. What comes first, what's more important? Like this is something that is very unique to each family. Like I don't know how to like wrap my head
It's
around.
yeah, it's tough only because I would say it's probably your parents who give you most of your self esteem. Your parents how they treat you makes a big difference. One of the articles that I read, I don't know if it's in the one that I'll set that we will make available for this video, but they do mention that at 7 to 8, your mind is very impressionable and it starts forming your opinion about yourself. So that view of yourself makes a big difference, and if your parents are acting a certain way with you, it makes a big difference to who you're gonna be later on.
And I mean, they say that kids are the best imitators. So
Yeah.
like, and again, this goes back to actions speak louder than words. Like your kids will end up being like you. So like, if you be your best self, then they will also be their best selves.
Yeah, precisely. But the thing is, it's tough because for social media, when you talk about self esteem, like you still have peers, you still think about them. Like even for me too, like just because I don't think about maybe appearances as much or anything like that doesn't mean I don't necessarily think about people's jobs and professional life and things of that nature, and thinking about, okay, they're in this position versus where am I? People, it's almost unavoidable, but I think maybe for your child you gotta really think about them, explaining to them that, okay, yes, you will have these feelings, these opinions, but you really got to know how valid it is, and you have to think about nuances. Like, for example, if said, oh, compared to my friend who said, like, oh, I'm in law school, but I'm not making any money, but then I'll say, okay, Hussein's doing this and I'm doing this, like it's a completely different road, so you can't, it's hard to compare. Like, you got to teach your kids to do that, to understand what the difference is.
Like perspective, right?
Right, like you gotta know perspective because you can't. It's not a one for one. Like there's certain things that I have in my life that you might say, "Well, Hatim's very privileged to have," and that you might see things that in your life that's, well, Hussein's very privileged to have this, but that doesn't necessarily mean that our self esteem should be affected. It's just a reality. But no one's life is one for one. Like you can't compare it from birth to now, and we can't compare our lives. Like it's just not possible.
So, what age would you give your child a phone, bro?
Yeah, so and it goes back to that. I would say maybe 10,
10.
10 o'clock. The 10 o'clock
10 o'clock
time.
after birth?
Yeah.
The first 10 o'clock after birth. Here you
Yeah,
go.
I don't know why I said 10 o'clock, but 10 years old. 10 years old. I think 10 years old is fair only because they're a little bit older and you can teach them a little bit more. They're going to be at school, and I understand that a lot of schools will start teaching about social media and what to be aware of. In terms of what specific, so YouTube is fine. I think YouTube can be, if you can monitor it and just be careful with it, they can get a lot of good content that should be fun for them and also educational. But for Instagram and TikTok, I'm more skeptical on TikTok and Instagram, but it's new. I would say for TikTok, maybe yes, they can use that at the same time as YouTube, just because there's a lot of good content there that's underrated that people don't really talk about besides all the nonsense. Instagram, I would be very wary, and Facebook too. Instagram and Facebook would be very wary because certain people reach out to you that are not age appropriate, and there's a lot of issues that come from that too.
You actually brought this up like a few minutes ago. Like, the time we have kids, it'll be like 15 years from now, essentially. Like, by the time they're old
Yeah.
enough to get it, like, that's a whole other discussion on what's going to be available at that time. Like, will smartphones be obsolete? Will it be like Google Glasses? Will it just be a VR world?
Well, yeah,
Because the
that's what I'm
current
saying. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like,
uh,
you're are
the smartphones have like reached maturity. There's no innovation now. So it's
yeah
either folding phones or like, I think we had this discussion before as well.
in the
The
technology
technology.
one.
It goes back to that. Like, what if at that point we're not savvy enough to know what the hell VR is and what apps they're using on the VR headset? Like,
Yeah, so I mean that's exactly like literally what I was thinking about too. So one thing I'll say is you're right. Like even if you and I, let's say we both had a kid by 2023, let's just say by 2023 we have a child. That's still 10 years later that we're saying. So that will still be 2033 that they'll have some kind of technology, or at least even almost 2030 where they're actually able to use this technology properly.
yeah, their own
And
private personal device, right? Like, not just like a family
yeah,
iPad or like a family computer.
right, right. And it's that's crazy. That's crazy to think about. But what was that point you were trying to? You just said something, but I can't remember what you were saying. That I wanted to comment on.
Yeah, the VR thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, the technology. Yeah, so I think I see like my parents, and I see a lot of older people than us, maybe at least maybe even 20 years older than us, and I see sometimes they can start getting behind on technology, and I always tell myself that I try to be be on top of technology because I don't want it to be a case where you know my kids are using something and I'm just unaware of it. Like you got to be tech savvy, and I think that's an important part of making sure your kids okay in the online world too. Because just because TikTok is now doesn't mean there's not going to be Zip Zap or any other random app 10 years from now. We don't know.
I mean, TikTok kind of came from Vine. Vine was a similar kind of concept.
Yeah.
7-second
Well,
videos,
yeah.
instant viral. Like, that's how it was. Like, it's just gonna new apps are gonna just keep coming and going. There was Tumblr at one point, uh, MySpace. Stuff just comes in and out. Facebook and Instagram will be obsolete at one point as well. So there'll be something new. But like, that's my point. Like, I want to know, how do you personally stay on top of things when you're not on anything?
I just think it just gives you more time. I don't know how to explain it only because I just don't have a interest in I used to be on Facebook for maybe like a year when I was 15 and then I got bored. Like
No, no, no. Like, I'm saying that you want to be on top of technology, but like, isn't being on top of social media half of it? Like, you find out a lot of stuff on social media about technology, or like the media itself drives you to engage with a lot more people who can help you, or like, you know, being
yeah,
a
but you
part of
can
the
find
whole
out with
on the world community.
Yeah, but you can. The thing is, I feel like for technology, like even though social media gives a lot, there's also a lot of false information. Which again, I like to say another topic for another day. But just being on top, I think like if you're able to, for me, I have a big I have a big family, and obviously friends wise, we have a lot of people to talk to that we can get that exchange of information about new technologies and people who are actually in that field just to get that, get an understanding of new technologies coming out and apps too.
If you're talking about Qasim, that's like very he could be outdated at one point too. Like he's also gonna grow old.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's true. Well, but I guess you can also do your own research. Like, if you hear about something that you don't know, just do your research. That's also another option. If you're saying that yes, Qasim will get old, he's literally the same 1 year younger than I am, and he's basically the same age as you. But Qasim's not the only one too. But like a bunch of them, it's just the we really just gotta you gotta keep on top of your game, just like anything. Like for when I'm a lawyer, right? Like I'll have to keep on top of my game of the law. Like it's always gonna be there's gonna be some changes and new court opinion. Same thing. You just gotta make sure you know what's going on.
This video was supposed to be about kids actually, but like there's so much we can do because we're actually not parents yet, so we don't have those experiences as well. I think this will be an interesting episode to do 10 years from now. So we'll keep a pin on that.
100%. Yeah. Hopefully we're surviving by then. But I think it does tie
2032.
back to. But I think it does tie back to kids because how it's if we get behind, then we're not able to monitor and make sure and give our children the right etiquette of how to use their devices.
Yeah, then they're gonna be trying all kinds of things.
Yeah, like we have no
Scary world.
idea. Yeah, just any window you open, you don't know what can happen. In fact, the one day like I was just looking up for on this website like just for like vocal lessons, right? And I saw and then just this like porn ad just popped up like randomly. Like it's not even that kind of site. It just popped up. I'm like, what the heck? Like literally, like there's nothing safe for children. There's nothing safe, and you just really got to be extremely, extremely careful.
I mean, porn is banned here, so if you wanna be a little safe, you can come here, bro. It's not a big deal.
Then let's just ban it here in the U.S. for and
Slow is gonna get banned in the US. How many tax dollars it generates? You have no idea.
oh, it makes a lot of money. Definitely, 100%. It's billions of dollars. Even Republicans don't talk about. But again, that's another topic for another day too. We get distracted. Um, but yeah, then
Uh-huh.
I want to actually mention like too, like we're talking a lot about self-esteem because I know for our viewers like we're jumping around a lot, but all of these things are really connected. It's really hard to say like just being as a parent being on top of what's going on social media, and then that can if you're on top, you can enable yourself to make sure like your child's self-esteem is good because then you'll know what's bothering them too.
Yeah, I mean, you were thinking, so I don't have to bother anyone if I need help with anything. Because I know how I feel when old people come to me and be like, "How do you turn this phone on?" It's stupid. Just like press the button. I don't want to be like that old guy.
Yeah.
I, but as the broader internet, if you don't know anything, just Google it. It's like instant information at your fingertips. Like kids can use that a lot to their benefit if they know
Yeah.
how to use the tools right.
Yeah, you gotta you teach your kids research skills. I mean, I'm sure many parents, if they ever watch this, will think that's easier said than done. And I'm sure, like if any parents are watching this, give us in the comments how you handle your kids on social media.
Yeah, I mean, we're just talking out of our ass. Like we have
Yeah,
no
pretty
idea
much.
how it's like.
Yeah, but I also want to get back to the social media, like some of the positives. Like we're talking about negatives right away, but even education wise, they do give potential benefits, and I'm just gonna read that too. Like they state creating a social media account has also proven to foster communication, socialization, and the main thing for here today, learning. Scientists found out that text-based communications can enhance communication and technical skills. By using social media, tweens will learn how to have an elaborate online network of friends, making them more empathetic, considerate, relationship oriented, and open to share how they feel. It also allows them to be competent citizens in a digital age where they can fully participate in the broader society, learn the social skills of that generation, and expand their general knowledge of the world. Social media can also be used as a schools as an educational tool. Some teachers use it for assignments. Students use it to swap homework and form study groups, and school groups use it to post about activities. By using social media, children can easily and instantaneously share ideas, get access to material, and learn from their peers. So,
Yeah,
what
it
do you
helps
think
to get
about
laid
that?
as well.
I can't believe you just said that. Um,
I mean,
well,
yeah,
they
it's all true. That's what I mean by, like, again, back to the whole tyrannical parent. Like, if you don't give your child a phone early on, then they're gonna miss out on all that. Like, that's what I basically meant. Like, that's a great elaboration on what I was talking about before.
I mean, the thing is, from I look at this and I understand what they're saying, like with the education tools, and you can't debate that because if you can reach out to people online, like for example, if you know you have an assignment and you can just reach out to them the same day without having to wait until the next day, that's extremely helpful. But there's other nuances that fall with that as well. My other thing is we even talk about being more empathetic, considerate, and relationship oriented, and that's just one study, and I'm not saying it's wrong. My thing is that even for a learning perspective, it can also kind of, you know, narrow your perspective too. Because, for example, let's say, and I'm going to use a very, very non controversial thing sports, right? We know in sports, people are not necessarily, people can be very dogmatic, kind of. Like, there's no, it's a sport, so people just get very, on their team, like, oh, this is my team, right? So when I'm looking at stuff regarding basketball, I'm looking at Celtic stuff. I'm not going on about the Rockets or any other team or the Kings or LeBron or anything. I'm literally focused on the Celtics. So if you're taking that from a learning perspective, yes, I feel like they're right that kids can learn more. But at the same time, are you only trying to find things that will support what you already believe, or will you try to look at everything? And that's another challenge, I think. It's an education tool, but are you using to educate yourself on what you already know and what you want to know versus what you don't know?
Bro, you sound like Jinbei, man. When he found out about the internet thing from Vegapunk.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
man,
yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what
you're
he said
basically
too, and
Jinbei.
it's true.
Yeah. I don't know how to end the episode on a better note than that.
I
That's
would
something
say,
that you guys can talk about in the comments down below, dude. Yeah.
yeah, they can. And if they want another episode, we can give it to them. But the education stuff, like I'm sure our viewers know. Like I'm not gonna even get on all the ways you can use it. More like all the ways that it can be misused too. Because and the reason why I would say that only is because we know that you can share notes, you can use YouTube, you can use, you know, other outlets and apps. But it's just more that education. It's like it's really hard to say because relationship wise, like people also notice that people can be more rude online because they know they're not seeing the person, and they can be kind of more. They'll we know trolls, like there'll be a troll. They don't care if you're in front of a person. It's a very different experience, but I guess
Yeah,
that's a
no
little
one's a
bit more
troll in
out of
real life.
yeah, exactly, and that's kind of out of the scope, and I don't want to get into it. Just the education and learning, like you don't want to limit yourself if you're only sticking, like for example, if you're only sticking with um like we're Muslims and we only look at Muslim groups instead of looking at all other groups just to get a better understanding of everyone, we'll narrow our perspective.
On that note, thank you for listening, watching, whatever you're doing to us on this episode. Uh, Make sure to like, subscribe. Peace.